Hello, Netrunner fans. Willing Dunn here, and welcome to my review of Business First. This is the second data pack in the Bad cycle. As is the custom for this cycle, we're going to be looking at the runner cards first. Part 2 of the video will look at all of the corp cards. We're going to kick things off with a new piece of hardware for Anarch. This is called EMP Device. It's 1 to play, it's 4 influence, it's a bomb subtype, and I'm pretty sure that's new. It has trash. The corp cannot res more than 1 piece of ice for the remainder of this run. Use this ability only during a run. This corp can't res ice sort of effect is something that we've been seeing a lot more of out of Anarch. There's definitely a few comparisons to be drawn here with DDoS, which I think has seen a little bit of play and has been a reasonably strong card. Now this thing, definitely a lot more limited in its power than DDoS. You're only going to be able to use it on 1 server. You're going to have to use it during the run. So it's definitely a lot more limited in that respect, but it's also not a 3-cost resource, so it's not going to be as expensive either. I have to admit that I'm not terribly impressed with this card. We already have cards that kind of do similar things that we're really not using a whole lot within Anarch. And this, I can see it maybe helping you get into like economy asset servers or servers where you're trying to use some sort of run effect, or maybe just pounding with medium on their R&D. But man, we already have other cards that help us do that. And one of the things that I've said so many times in my reviews of cards is you don't really need to play cards to make things like medium better. So I guess this card seems okay to me, but I don't really see you wanting to lose valuable deck slots to play something like this. The next card is a new program for Anarch. This is Devon. It's 1 to play, it's 1 MU, and it's 1 influence. It's a virus. When it's installed, you choose a server. As an additional cost to install a card in or protecting that server, the corp must pay a credit, and you trash it if the corp purges virus counters. A lot of the most popular Anarch decks right now are using kind of unprecedented amounts of ice destruction, especially with the cutlery and stuff like that. Those really didn't see a lot of play up until fairly recently. So something like this could maybe be an addition to one of those decks. A lot of times what you're looking to do is get down a medium, destroy as many of their ice on R&D as you can, and then you're just going to eventually run over them with medium. But really, there aren't that many decks that are building big defensive servers, even though we're seeing a lot of Glacier. I mean, 2 or 3 ice is probably what your average scoring remote is going to get up to. And this to me just doesn't seem like it's going to be worth including to help against like R&D and that 1 tower of power. And I think the real nail in this thing's coffin is the fact that it dies when they purge counters. We're in a time of unprecedented use of things like Cyberdeck's Virus Suite. So this to me, it seems like it's going to die pretty easily. If it's really a big problem, it's probably going to be easy to deal with it with Virus Suite. And really all around, this just feels like another B-team virus card. I think this is a little better than some of the other sort of B-team viruses we've seen, but I really don't anticipate this seeing a lot of play. Next up, we have a new run event for criminals, and this is a very special card. This is CBI Raid. It's 3 to play, it's 2 influence, it's run and sabotage. Make a run on HQ. If successful, instead of accessing cards, the corp adds all cards in HQ to the top of R&D in any order of his or her choice. The reason why I say this is a very special card is because it was designed by the 2013 world champion Jens Eriksson. And if you didn't know, Netrunner, if you win the world championship, you get to work with FFG to design a card. He won in 2013, and now we're seeing his card here. This is the second card we've seen released, designed by a world champion. Architect is the other one. So let's take a look at what he came up with. Now, we've known that Criminal has a lot of really powerful run events on HQ, obviously Siphon, but also Legwork. This lets us do something that we can't do with any other effect really in the whole game. First of all, we're going to be able to, if they have agendas in hand, force them to put them back on top of their deck. That might be useful, especially if we're in a situation where we're already multi-accessing from R&D and where it'd be expensive to multiple times run HQ. Now, that use is not really all that different than legwork. I think legwork is probably better in that situation. But the bigger and I think more important thing that you can do with this is disrupt operations or other critical cards that the corp might need, especially if they're assembling like a kill. Almost all of the flatline-oriented decks rely on drawing into the right combination of operations or other cards. Now, we're obviously talking about Scorched Earth here. SEA Source and Scorched Earth is kind of the original combo. But we're also talking about things like Neural EMP, or like 24/7, or maybe something like Biotic Labor, where they're going to hold it for a long time until they draw the agenda that they want to score. This could be really nasty in a situation where they haven't been able to set up all their ice yet. It's really going to slow them down. They're going to have to draw cards to locate their effects. It could also be really mean with something like Leela to the same end, where you'd be able to bounce their HQ ice and then fire this off. Now they've got to put that piece of ice and all their other cards on top of their deck. There are already some pretty good reasons to play one or two of this in your average criminal deck, but this is the type of card that I think only gets better as more and more cards are added to the card pool. As we see more reasons for corps to build combinations of cards in their hand, this card is only going to get better at disrupting that. So I anticipate this being the type of thing that we're going to have in our toolbox, basically from here until, the entire future of the game. Next up, we have a new criminal resource. This is Tech Trader. It's 1 to play and it's 1 influence. It's a connection. Whenever you use a trash ability, gain a credit. Well, this has got to be one of the most obvious Geist cards I can possibly come up with. You're going to not only be able to draw cards with Geist, but you're also going to gain a credit. Not to mention this isn't unique, so you could stack several of this in play. You'd be able to get multiple credits per trash. And a lot of the Geist decks that I've seen use trashable icebreakers, like the Breaking and Entering suite or things like that. So it's going to be pretty easy to time the use of your trash cards until after you've gotten Tech Traders in play. So I definitely see this as being a really powerful economic tool for a deck like that. It's also worth pointing out that since this is a connection, it's going to interact with some of the connection-oriented tools within Criminal. The most obvious one is Hostage. That would give you a way to tutor this thing up really quickly and early in a game. It also might give you the ability to play kind of a little bit of a toolbox with the hostages. For anybody that's been working on a Geist deck, this is absolutely a godsend. Now that we have this and Technical Writer, I think we have some really, really good economic tools to build around Geist. And I'm really curious to see what sort of things people come up with. I anticipate a very street peddler, very trash intensive, burning through your deck quickly style of deck. And I think that there's definitely some reasons to do that now that we have another economic tool. Next up, we have a new piece of hardware for Shaper. This is called Net Chip. It's 1 to play, it's 2 influence. It's consumer grade, and it's a chip. Net Chip can host a program with memory costs less than or equal to the number of copies of it installed. The memory cost of the hosted program does not count against your memory limit, and it's limit 6 per deck because it's consumer grade. If you've watched my channel before, you know that I love Big Rig, especially out of Shaper, and this has got to be one of the biggest rig cards that we've seen in a long time. This is really cool. And this is so much better than the previous consumer grade card that we saw. I could actually see playing more than 3 copies of this. The big thing is, once you get 2 of this in play, it's going to host almost every program in the game and not count it towards your memory limit. That's going to let you have really huge rigs, let you have things like Magnum Opus, extra SMCs, maybe even something like Keyhole or Sneak Door Beta in your rig. It's going to make it a lot easier to get all of your memory requirements with something like this in your deck. With Maya and now this, it's so much easier to build a big rig deck that doesn't have memory problems within Shaper. And I think if you were playing memory chips in a Shaper deck, this is a very serious contender to replace those. Now, there maybe is a little clumsiness with this, because if you only have one in play, it's only going to give you an effective 1+1 MU. But I think there's lots of situations where that's still going to be good enough. And this to me definitely seems like a requirement if you're playing the really, really MU intensive Shaper decks, especially if you're playing something like Hyperdriver in your deck, where you're just going to utterly annihilate all your MU as soon as you install it. This is a really sweet card. I want to see more stuff out of consumer grade that is like this. And I really think that one of the best things that they can do with consumer grade is to make it these very generic, easy to use effects, because otherwise you're not going to want to play 6 copies of something or even more than 3 copies of something in your deck. Next up, we have a neutral event. This is Corporate Scandal. It's 3 to play, it's 1 influence, it's a current, and that means it's not trashed until another current is played or the corp scores an agenda. The corp has 1 additional bad pub, even if they have 0. This is one of those cards where I read it and I was like, yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable card that I assumed would exist at some point, but I'm not going to play it. I don't think there's really a whole lot of incentive to giving the corp bad pub. I know that bad pub is generally useful because of the recurring credit thing, but really, if you're playing something like this in your deck, it's going to be because you want to enable some sort of bad pub effect. And I think blackmail is about as strong as those effects come in the game. And we could just play Val to enable that and not have to play some funky 3-cost current that's going to be pretty easy to deal with as the corp. There really just aren't that many cards that do nifty things for you if the corp has bad pub, and the only effect in the game that I can think of that benefits them having multiple bad pub is also a current in the form of itinerant protesters. So I don't know, I'm really iffy on this thing. I think it's too expensive. I'm not going to spend the influence. In the future, if we see more really powerful bad pub oriented tools, I could see this being pretty good. Or if there were more of a reason for you to give the corp multiple bad pub, this could maybe be good. But for now, this is definitely sitting in the box for me. The final card on the runner side is also a neutral event. This is called Populist Rally. It's 2 to play, it's 0 influence, it's an event. Play only if you have at least 1 CD card installed. The corp has 1 fewer click to spend on his or her next turn. I'm really enthusiastic about the idea of using card subtypes, and I've talked about that a lot in my core set retrospective series, where I said I really wish they had done something with these subtypes earlier in the game. This is one of the first cards that we've ever seen that uses these subtypes, and that's got me a little hopeful about what we're going to see in the future. Now that said, man, there are some serious problems with this particular card. The first and most obvious is that there's only 5 CD cards in the game, and 4 of them are Anarch cards, including 2 cards that see a pretty significant amount of play in probably the most popular deck overall. Wildside is CD, so if you're playing the Wildside adjusted chronotype combo in your deck, which you probably are if you're playing Anarch, that's going to mean that you just by default have access to CD. We also see Street Peddler, which is another great tool for Anarchs. It's also CD, so if you need to meet the CD requirement, it's really not going to be hard to do on the Anarch side. Now that's going to be much harder to do outside of Anarch. Street Peddler's 1 influence, but you're going to have the right build in order to be able to accommodate a card like that. And there's really just no other cards on the CD list that are worth playing really outside of that. Let's just assume for a second that you are playing Wildside or something like that. What can you do with this fewer click thing? I think by far the most powerful thing you can do is mess up their scoring of an agenda. So if the corp installs advances, Then you can drop this thing to make it so that they can't score their 5 for 3 or whatever on their next turn. That could potentially buy you another turn to get into the remote. Maybe you could score the big agenda. I could also see it being okay for like a denial style deck. If you kill their ice or you deny them a bunch of credits, things like that, you could make it harder for them to defend a server against like multiple medium runs or something like that. I don't know. I'm pretty lukewarm about this. I think it's going to be really, really hard to play outside of Anarch until we get more CD effects. And even still, it's going to be reasonably difficult to use just because I think there's a lot of situations where you paying 2 for this is not going to be worth them losing a click. That's going to do it for part 1 of my business first review. Be sure to tune into part 2. I think the Corp definitely got the better half of this pack. And if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel, press the button that looks like a thumbs up, and leave me a comment to let me know which cards I'm right or wrong about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.